people ever come closer to history than a book or a newspaper, and yet sometimes within minutes of our populated areas, the remains of our early history still survive to be enjoyed by the casual visitor or the student of history. Southern California has many historic monuments within easy reach of the city, so we decided to take you on a visit to some of the places that played a part in the history of early California. Here in Placerita Canyon grows the famous oak of the Golden Dream. Purchased by the state in 1948 to preserve one of the most historic spots in California, Placerita State Park was dedicated in 1956. This cabin, located squarely in the center of the large picnic area, has been used for many years by many people for many different reasons. As a temporary hideout by outlaws being pursued by posses, and then by the sheriff's deputies hot on the trail. Cowboys used its shelter in their never-ending search for stray cattle. Some of the materials in this cabin date back to the early adventurers who prospected for gold in the canyon. This was part of the once great Del Valle Ranch, known as Rancho San Francisco. The rancho, which had been part of Mission San Fernando, was secularized in 1834 by order of the governor, Jose Figueroa. It then became the possession of Antonio Del Valle and covered some 103,000 acres. However, in filing for a patent after the United States took possession of California, the Del Valle survey made in 1852 claimed only 48,000 acres, and the remainder became government land. In the late 1860s, mining claims were filed on this land by an uncle of Frank Walker's, and later it became patented land. The cabin was built by Frank Walker after acquiring the surrounding land. As a matter of fact, several of the Walker children were born here. Recently, the Park Department restored it to its original appearance, and it will be used hereafter as an office of information and as a museum to house the relics of the period. An annual fiesta is held here every year to commemorate the discovery of gold. A dramatic pageant with a mounted posse and costume dancers reenact the fiestas of the past. The children march gaily, dressed in bright colors, carrying scores of our national flags. On April 4th, 1842, the first gold claim in California was staked here in this park by Don Francisco Lopez, Manuel Cota, and Domingo Bermudez. This historic document is in the archives at Sacramento. Scores of miners and prospectors invaded the region following the gold discovery. It wasn't too pleasurable an experience for the Del Valles, who suffered from the trespassers who cut firewood and disturbed the cattle and assumed at least temporary proprietorship of the ranch lands. It became obvious that it was necessary to set up some sort of control. The result was the formulation of California's first mining district laws, taken of course from Spanish and Mexican customs, and put into use May 3rd, 1842, by authority of the nearest governing body at Pueblo, Los Angeles. This historic document is in its original Spanish and still survives in the Bancroft Library. All the kids crowd in for the gold panning contest, just as in the days of the early discovery. Any kind of pan will do, tin or paper. Some of the older kids seem to enjoy this too. This great oak, the oak of the Golden Dream, is believed to be more than 500 years old. Some say it is the oldest living tree in Southern California. It was after taking a siesta under this tree that Don Francisco Lopez walked to the spot to pull some wild onions and discovered small particles of gold clinging to their roots. This plaque marked the spot of that eventful day, March 3rd, 1842. The gold seems to be gone. Only the memory remains. The first gold shipment went to the United States Mint in Philadelphia in November 1842 and amounted to about $80,000. It is believed that some $3 million in all was recovered here in this colorful Placerita Canyon. By early 1870, the mining boom was just about over for this tributary of the Little Santa Clara. This is Soledad Camp, also known as Ravenna City. These few buildings are all that remain of a once promising mining town that boasted several stores, a saloon, blacksmith shop, and a school. These sentinels that watch over Soledad Canyon saw the first boom fade in 1863, only to be revived again with greater activity in 1869. Placer mining was the most common method used all along the Santa Clara, from Lang Station to Soledad Camp. During the dry seasons, when water was short, the miners used a form of dry washer or rocker. These primitive mining methods were used here from 1850 until 1898 and were revived to some extent during the Depression years of the early 1930s. Due to a shortage of water in the Little Santa Clara River in the 1870s, two of the most promising gold mines in operation were the Red Rover and the New York, which later became known as the Governor because of the interest owned by the then Governor Gage of California. We are now approaching the Red Rover mine, or what is left of it. This is all that remains of a mine that was in operation for many years. However, it was never very profitable for its many different owners. The ore deposits were in pockets, and as they were worked out, so were the various investors. In spite of this, the mine was still in operation until the outbreak of World War II. This tower held the cables that operated the lift, carrying the ore up and the miners back and forth to work some 800 feet straight down. The framework once carried the ore cars with their loads to the mill, and from here they carried the slag to the huge slag dumps we saw upon entering this mine area. We have no information as to how much it produced in paying ore. However, it seems to have produced enough to have kept it in operation until the early 1940s. After that, a few miners stayed on for several years, but they too finally drifted away. Here we cross over a small mountain and approach the Governor Gage mine. We are some 400 feet up from the floor of the valley. You can see by the amount of slag piled up that this mine has been worked very extensively. We stopped to talk with the miner and ask about the mine. He offered to take us into the tunnel. This is the entrance to the Governor Gage mine tunnel. We are now approaching the 300-foot level. Before a recent cave-in, this tunnel penetrated 600 feet into the mountain. This mine shipped $18 million in gold to the mint in San Francisco during its working time. It was finally shut down during the early part of World War II due to the high cost of labor and a shortage of strategic materials. While this mine was a very high producer of gold ore, the miners were constantly faced with the problem of an adequate water supply. All the water necessary for both men and machinery had to be hauled from the little Santa Clara River, which was about a mile away from the mine. After Governor Gage and associates took over the New York, it was operated very successfully until the early 1940s, and then, due to World War II, closed down. When it was finally dismantled, all the machinery and equipment was shipped to Arizona, where it was used at other mines. During and after the days of '49, there was a great movement westward, and mining went on all over the West and has continued to this day. Transportation was a problem to the early miners in Soledad and other canyons. There was talk of tunneling through the lower levels of the San Fernando Mountains because the shortest wagon road from Los Angeles to the mining camps was about 65 miles over very rough trails. The citizens of Los Angeles were afraid that the freight lines and stages would take the easiest route to the coast, which was along the Santa Clara River to Buenaventura. If that happened, Ventura would become the main shipping center of Southern California. This problem was finally solved by E.F. Beale in 1863. It seems incredible that this cut through the mountain, which is 90 feet deep, was dug entirely by hand. Hundreds of men worked without the aid of high-powered blasting powders or modern earth-moving equipment. Somehow, during the ensuing years, Beale's Cut became known as Fremont Pass. General Fremont did cross here. The year was 1847. His destination, Campo de Cahuenga. The almost impassable terrain forced the Fremont party to abandon their wagons and cross the mountain on foot. Arriving at Campo de Cahuenga, Fremont accepted the surrender of the California Territory for the United States. Many students of history believe that this cut made Los Angeles, rather than Ventura or Oxnard, the metropolis of Southern California. Depot was once at home in Glendale. It was moved to this location after completion of the rail line. At 1:58 p.m., September 5, 1876, Colonel Charles F. Crocker drove the Gold Spike here at Lang Station. This completed the Southern Pacific Railroad between Los Angeles and San Francisco and gave the United States its first transcontinental railroad connection with Southern California. This rail line helped solve many problems for the miners in Soledad Canyon and the surrounding country. The signal block is set, so let's go in and watch the operator. Apparently, she is receiving orders for an approaching train. Note how the orders are given to the engineer with the wooden hoop. Station, we are told, will become just a landmark in the near future. Because of modern radio and radar equipment, it will no longer require an operator. Pico Canyon is the birthplace of the oil industry in California and also of one of our major oil companies. As we ride up Pico Canyon, we follow the first oil pipeline laid in the United States. We are also following the same route the stagecoaches used in their daily trips from Mentryville to Newhall. One of these lines carried oil to the refinery in Railroad Canyon, and the other carried water up to Mentryville and Pico Canyon. In about 1876, 1 mile of this line was laid in order to facilitate the loading and shipping of the cumbersome wooden barrels. 3 years later, the line was extended to the refinery in Railroad Canyon, some 6 miles away. Mentryville in Pico Canyon was the scene of California's first oil boom in 1865. The stage to Lyon Station and later to Newhall operated from here. First claims were filed in this area as placer mining claims because there were oil seepages about the canyon walls. The first well is credited to Sanford Lyon. He drilled 140 feet deep in 1869 near the seepages. This well produced about 10 barrels a day. About this time, D.G. Schofield arrived here from Pennsylvania. In 1873, Big Alex Mentry also arrived in California and spring-poled a hole about 75 feet deep to bring in a 5-barrel-a-day well. Mentry's lease was taken over by Schofield and formed the nucleus of Schofield's California Star Oil Works. California Star Oil Works No. 4 was the first well to be drilled with the use of steam and has become a shrine to the petroleum production pioneers. This hotel housed company officials and supervisors on their periodic inspection trips. It is now the home of the caretaker, the only family living in Mentryville at the present time. This school was run as part of the Felton School District. For many years, the law required that there must be a minimum of 5 children in attendance to maintain a school. Finally, in 1936, the enrollment fell below 5, and the school was closed and then became part of the Newhall School District. At one time, there were several hundred people living in Mentryville. It was named for the company superintendent, Alex Mentry, who supervised its construction. From the hand-operated spring-pole rigs first used here came the small wooden derricks, which are midgets compared with modern rigs. The odd pieces of machinery left here were made of wood by the local machinists. This is old No. 4, the first commercial production well in California, drilled in 1876 and still producing. Here in this remote spot, the California oil industry was born, and from this beginning, the huge Standard Oil Company of California was founded. From this marker, we are directed to the Pioneer Oil Refinery. This was California's first refinery operated on a commercial scale. It was built to process petroleum from the California Star Oil wells in Pico Canyon, just 6 miles northwest of here. As a memorial to D.G. Schofield and his pioneer associates of the California Star Oil Works Company, the refinery was restored in 1930 by the Standard Oil Company of California as a lasting tribute to the men who in 1876 were responsible for California's first commercial production of crude oil. This forest fire came very near destroying this historic old refinery and the nearby town of Newhall as well. Equipment and methods of refining certainly have changed since the days of this plant, which closed down in 1883. Here, too, is the terminus of that first oil pipeline laid to bring crude oil from Pico Canyon to the refinery. Just over the hill from here, on Clampett Road, we find a modern refinery. Note the modern natural gas-burning boilers, the huge pumps, electricity, and automatic controls. The crude petroleum starts in one end of this plant and comes out the other, a finished product, ready to be hauled to your favorite service station so that you can enjoy motoring to some of these historic places. Of course, our method of transportation doesn't use this kind of fuel. traveling along the back roads, you sometimes come across strange and deserted-looking buildings. I wonder what this old shack might be. Might as well take a look as long as we're here. There might be something interesting inside. I wonder what all this is for. Sounds like there's something or somebody nearby. Uh-oh, there is. There's somebody and he's got a gun. Well, he doesn't seem to be too angry. Just an elderly man, probably been out here alone a long time. It seems as if he's going to be friendly after all. We asked him if he would explain the machinery to us, which he agreed to do very willingly. He started the gasoline engine and explained that the gold-bearing quartz brought from the mine and run through this small crusher is broken up in very small pieces. Then they drop into the stamp with water and are crushed into smaller particles. This amalgam is then carried over metal plates which have been previously coated with mercury. The mercury picks up the small particles of metal. The plates are then cleaned and the mixture of metals and mercury is put into a steel cylinder and heated until the mercury is carried off in a coil that is cooled. The mercury then condenses and is recovered to be used again. The metals, such as gold or silver, remain in the bottom of the retort. This is a modern way of recovering gold and silver when it is found in hard rock, and is much more difficult than the placer mining which we have seen. This mill is only 30 miles from Hollywood and is in operation at the present time. It was a very interesting experience for us, but we must return to the ranch. Our thanks to the mining company for letting us visit.